Hey everyone, it is Chris. I'm going to have a little change of pace today. So, in my last couple videos, what I've been talking about is the damage of the 2024 classes, and I've been doing some math and showing some graphs so that we can see how they compare to their 2014 counterparts as well as to each other. And today is the day after I released the Rogue video, and I was going through comments, and I have multiple comments from viewers asking about how the damage is calculated, or wondering about the math at a certain point of the video. And so what I want to do today, and I maybe should have started with this, but what I want to do today is I want to show you how the math is done, because in these videos, what I'm doing is I'm showing you the math, and I say, there's the math, you can check it if you like, and I'm not telling you what to check or how to check it, which is my mistake. Sorry about that. So we are going to go over how the damage is calculated. So up here, I've got the 2024 Rogue damage, and this was the light crossbow build I did that used True Strike. One of the comments I had was wondering how the well, not one of the comments, multiple comments I had was wondering how the Rogue performs without True Strike. So what I figure I'll do is I'll do one more build, and we'll do without True Strike, and we'll see how it goes. This is just kind of a theoretical build, but what I normally do when I prepare these builds is I usually like copy and paste one, and then I make adjustments, right? So I'm going to copy and paste this guy. And then we're going to go right to the end of this document, and we're going to paste it. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is, more recently I've been doing this DPR column in white because the red doesn't show up nicely on the screen in the video. Looks fine to me, not on video. But so we're gonna switch this all to white. And then I'm going to start making adjustments. So we are doing a rogue. Instead of light crossbow, let's, if I was going to not use True Strike, then I would be looking maybe to try to use maybe the Nick weapon property. So let's do a dagger thrower and see how it goes. I'm not sure dagger thrower is going to be great, but that's the point of doing this, is you punch in the math and you see how it does. So let's go ahead and do dagger thrower. If we aren't worrying about our bonus action for attacking because of the Nick property, then we can still use our steady aim at level 3. And obviously, if we're going to focus on not using True Strike, then I want my dexterity at +2. And we're not going to worry about what the other stat bonus will be. We definitely want +2 dexterity, and we don't need True Strike. And then, so we would start with a 17 dexterity. And, I mean, the other stats don't really matter for damage calculations. And then, how would I change my feat selection? I still might take Poisoner, but I would just increase my dexterity to 18 instead of intelligence. That's an option with Poisoner. And then let's go dex +2 at 8. And as for the other feats, I don't know. I mean, let's not worry about them. We're not going to worry about other. We'll assume we're taking feats that are not going to increase our damage necessarily, because there's probably some other feats we want to look at. Things like Mage Slayer, I would recommend taking a look at. We might even just want to add things like Lucky or Alert, which don't add to ability scores. And then I've got Epic Boon of Combat Prowess. Let's just keep that. Okay. Actually, if we're throwing daggers and we don't have a reliable damage type, maybe we want Irresistible Offense. That's the one that increases your crit damage, and more importantly, it gives you reliable damage. So let's do that. I'm sure I'm misspelling that. Thank you, Google, or Google Docs. All right, Irresistible Offense, and we'd probably increase our dex to 21, though it doesn't really matter, right? Okay, so the assumptions would be the same. 4 combats per long rest, 1 short rest. For Rogue, it doesn't matter. No outside source of advantage or disadvantage. I'm not using Elven Accuracy. I'm assuming that I can always use Sneak Attack and poison damage through poisoner is ignored. And yeah, so I did that with the base rogue. Is I took the poisoner feat, and what I said is, because poison, you can craft it and it adds to damage. You could expect the poisoner feat to increase your damage, but I don't know how much money you're going to have, because it costs money to craft the poisons. And I bring this up because I had a number of comments in my last video about the rogue, about a thief using scrolls to increase their damage. It's the same thing. I don't know how much money your DM is going to give you, so I don't know whether I should be adding it at all, but I'm just not adding it for these calculations. And just know that if you craft some poison, your damage will go up. All right, so features. We're going to need to make some changes here. So I'm going to start with the features column. This is what I always do first, just to remind myself of what's happening when. We're at Dex +3 at level 1. We're using the Nick Mastery, and we're throwing 2 daggers. Okay. And then I assume advantage half the time at level 2 because of cunning action, which will give you advantage some of the time when you have a place to hide and you succeed on the check, and some of the time it won't because you fail the check or you don't have a place to hide. By level 3, we get steady aim, so we'll have advantage every round. Level 4, Dex +4. And level 8, it's Dex +5. And we're now going to do the irresistible offense. And Stroke of Luck once per short or long rest, which I'm not counting into the damage because it only counts if, we have to miss, and then we can create a critical once per long rest. And I didn't add it for the other rogues, so I don't think I should add it here either. The next thing I need to do is change. I've got Sneak Attack and True Strike here, so let's get rid of True Strike. And let's get rid of it on here as well. All right, and then I'm going to just take the calculations that I have here, and I am going to lose them all, because they're just going to mess me up. So it's better not to have them on there at all, I find. Okay, so what I start with is the damage of the weapon. So with the rogue throwing 2 daggers, we're going to have 2 different damages because rogues do not get a fighting style, and that means they are not going to be adding their dexterity to the second attack. So I need 2 different ones. So the first one will be 1d4 plus 3, which is the dexterity bonus. And then I put in brackets, and the first number I put is the number or the average damage of the attack. So a d4 average is 2.5, plus 3 is 5.5. Then I put a second number, and the second number is the amount that a critical hit would increase the damage of this weapon. So if we scored a critical hit with this dagger, the 3 doesn't multiply, but the d4 does. We get a second d4. So we're doing 2.5 points of average extra damage on a critical hit with the dagger. So I put 2.5 because I need to calculate that separately. Then I'll do a second one for the dagger without dexterity, and that'll be 2.5 in either case. All right? All right, so then I need to do some calculations. So we're going to start with the dagger that we're adding our dexterity to. So our first attack. And so it's 5.5 average damage, and then I multiply it by the chance to hit. And the chance to hit is based on... All right, I'm inserting an edit here because there are some things that you need to know. The first is I'm not going to be on camera for this video. So I was recording myself on camera as well as recording screen share. And as I was looking for this file that I was about to show you, I inadvertently turned my camera off and didn't notice it was off until the video was done. Fortunately, the screen share was recording my voice, so I can continue the video. I just won't be on camera. So that's why I won't be on camera for this video. The second thing is I released this video early to patrons yesterday, and 2 questions have come up repeatedly. And so I figure I better answer both those questions in the video rather than go through all the comments and answer them over and over again. All right, so the first question that comes up a lot is, why am I not using spreadsheets? Because spreadsheets would get the math done a lot faster. There are multiple reasons. They're not all good, but some of them are. The first reason is I'm just used to doing the math longhand, so that's what I do. But the second reason is I am much better at spotting errors when I see the equations in front of me. So if I code something wrong on a spreadsheet and it spits out a number at me, I have a far lower chance of recognizing an error I've made. But if I have the equations in front of me and I'm seeing the numbers, you'll see in this video I catch errors that I have made because I'm doing the math longhand. And in a spreadsheet, I don't have that protection. Okay, so that is another reason I do it. The third reason is, once I get a graph with damage numbers, if I have punched that math by hand, I know exactly where those numbers are coming from. I know why the graph looks the way it does. If I see jumps at certain levels, I know what's contributing and how much is contributing. And it just helps me make decisions when, I'm weighing one option against another. How is that affecting my DPR? Well, if I've punched the math by hand, I know. Okay. Finally, I like it. I like doing math longhand because, to me, you'll see in this video, or hear my voice in this video, how I kind of am enjoying working my way down and just seeing the results unfold like a story. So that's why I don't use spreadsheets. The other question that comes up is, should I be using 65% base chance to hit? Because I'm about to show a bunch of armor classes that will give a 60% base chance to hit. And where do I get those armor classes from? Well, they are an estimate. But I am aware that a number of people who punch DPR math use 65% base chance to hit. And I'm going to tell you where that number comes from and why I don't use it. So where the number comes from is, optimizers would love it if the DMG or the player's handbook told us what armor class we could expect our 5th level character to be facing. But they don't. So some people have really searched for something they can use that's, official. And so in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there are rules for creating custom monsters, and they suggest armor classes based on challenge ratings. So if you're making a challenge rating 5 monster, it will tell you what armor class that you should consider giving that creature. And if you use those armor classes, then you also assume that your character will be facing a creature that is equal to your level in challenge rating, then all the armor classes that I'm about to present would be one lower if you make those assumptions. I don't like either of those assumptions. The first assumption is that monster creation sheet is somehow giving you accurate information as in regards to the armor classes of challenge ratings. And if you look at the published creatures and you compare it to what they suggest in there, it looks to me like they don't take their own advice. I mean, they suggest that a CR 30 creature should have an armor class of 19. There is no CR 30 creature in the game with an armor class of less than 23. So they just do not use their own advice, so I don't think they're accurate. The second thing is, I would not assume that if you make a character that is, DPR-based character, so they're single target damage dealer, and they're looking for the big, bad, tough guy, which I think tactically you should, if that is the kind of character you're playing, that big, bad, tough guy will have a challenge rating equal to your level. In my experience, that's not the case. In my experience, the biggest, baddest guy on the bad guy's team probably has a challenge rating higher than my level. So they're making multiple assumptions in order to come up with that 65% chance that I just wouldn't make. And frankly, if I was to change 60%, I'd go the other way. I'd probably go to 55% before I ever went to 65%. 65% would increase all the numbers, but it just seems really generous and optimistic, overly optimistic to me. So that's why I don't use 65% chance to hit. Back to the video. All right, so this is my damage baseline. This is the Warlock, but you can see the center column says target AC, 14, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 18, 19, 20. So depending on your level is the target armor class. Of course, some creatures you fight will be lower than this, and some will be higher than this. This is just an estimate. And part of the way I set this up is so that we generally have the same chance to hit at every level if we increase our ability score bonus at levels 4 and 8, which we are doing with the rogue. And what it gives us is a 60% chance to hit. So I do 60% chance to hit, unless for some reason the ability score I'm adding is lower or higher, or if there's some other modifier to hit, like let's say you had the archery combat style and you're firing a bow or something like that. All right, and then I literally just punch the math. So 5.5 times 0.6 is 3.3, and I put it here. And if I have a fraction, or I should say decimals beyond 1 decimal place, I round it to 1 decimal place. Then I need to consider the extra damage I might do with a critical hit, and that is where the 2.5 comes up. And I multiply it by 0.05, that's 5%, your chance to score a critical hit. And so 2.5 times 0.05 is 0.125, 0.1. Okay? Then we do our second attack. And so that one is 2.5, and then I just multiply it by 0.65. And the reason I do that is I could give you 2.5 times 0.6, and then 2.5 times 0.05, and it would give me the same result that 2.5 times 0.65 is. Because there's no, the whole thing multiplies on a critical hit, you can just add those two together. So we go 2.5 times 0.65. 1.6. And now we're going to do our sneak attack damage. Now the reason I don't add sneak attack to the base attacks is because if this attack misses, then I have another chance to score a sneak attack with this one, right? So what I really want to do to determine my likelihood of a sneak attack is I want to take my chance to hit here and my chance to hit with this second attack, and then figure out exactly what is my chance of hitting at least once on my turn, okay? And the way you would do that is you'd take a chance to miss. So our chance to miss is 40%, and that's represented by 0.4 or 0.40. And then you multiply it by your other chance to miss, which is also 0.4, to give you your new chance to miss, which is 0.16. So that means there's an 84, like if we subtract 1 from that, there's an 84% chance we will hit at least once on our turn. We might hit twice, but that doesn't matter for sneak attack. So 84% chance to hit. And sneak attack is 1d6, so that's 3.5. And 84% chance to hit, except we also have to consider the possibility of a critical. Now, the chance to get a critical hit on your sneak attack is not 5%. It's fairly close to 5%, but it's not 5%. And the reason it's not 5% is because on our first attack, if we roll a 20, we will get a critical. That's a 5% chance. But if we miss, we have another chance of scoring a critical with our second attack, which would double the sneak attack as well. So what you have to do, I should just write it out here. So what you have to do to figure out a sneak attack crit is you have to take chance of critical on first attack plus the chance of critical on the second attack multiplied by the chance the first attack, my typing is not so good, well I do 10 things at once, missed. All right, so basically you have to take into account if the first attack hit but didn't crit, then you don't get a crit. But if the first attack missed, you get a second chance to get a crit. And that's just how the probability works. So what I would do then is the chance of critical on the first attack is 5%. Chance of critical on the second is 5% multiplied by the chance to miss on the first. So 5% times 0.4 was our chance to miss is 0.2. And then we add that to 5%, and we get 0.7. Okay, so our sneak attack damage is 7% additional from critical hits. Okay, that's how that works. And I could do 3.5 times 0.07, or just like with the other one, I can just do 0.91, which is what I will do. So we go 3.5 times 0.91 equals 3.2. And now I can do some addition, and we can get our level 1 DPR. And we got 3.4 from the first one, 3.3 plus 0.1. And then 1.6 from our second attack, plus 3.2 from sneak attack, is 8.2, which is above baseline. That's good. 8.2 is not bad at all. All right. Advantage half the time to hit, and what I've worked out here is 72 and 0.07. What I've done here is, if you want to determine your chance of hitting with advantage, it's actually very similar to our chance of scoring a sneak attack at least once, is we multiply our chance to miss by our chance to miss, and that's our new chance to hit, which gives 84%. So if I take 60% and 84%, add them together, divide by 2, I get 72%. And our chance to crit is 5%, but with a advantage, it ends up being 9.75, which I round off to 10. Add them together, divide by 2, 0.07. Okay, so I'll just take these numbers here and copy and paste them, and I copy and paste a lot when doing these. And then I just make the adjustments. All right, so our base chance to hit here is 72. And 7%. Add those two together, and this is now 79%. Oh, actually, no, this one will not change. See, I remember things as I go all the time. This one will not change because the first attack, whether it hits or misses, is going to reveal us, right? And so we won't have advantage on the second attack either way. All right, so we got 5.5 times 0.72 is 4, and 2.5 times 0.07 is 0.2. All right, so 4 and 0.2. And our chance of scoring a sneak attack will change. So because we're getting advantage on that first attack, so that first attack only has a 16% chance to miss, multiplied by the 40% chance to miss on the second attack. And the chance our sneak attack hits is 93.6%, which I will round to 94%. So 94%, and then we also have to figure out our new chance of critical, which also changes. So I'm just going to write myself a note here. We got 94% plus, and it's worked out the same way. So the chance of critical on the first attack is 7%, and the chance of critical on the second attack is 5%, and we multiply that by the chance that the first attack missed, which is 0.28 actually. Plus 0.07. 8%. All right, so we got 8% plus 94% is 102%. And this can happen. So we're going to multiply our average sneak attack damage by 1.02, and the reason we're doing that is we hit so often with sneak attack, by the time we add on our additional critical hit damage, it ends up being over 100% of our average sneak attack damage. Because that average of 3.5 does not include critical hits. And we get 3.6. So we're going to make this 3.6. And then I'm just going to add stuff together. So we got 4 plus 0.2 plus 1.6 plus 3.6, and we are at 9.4. All right. At level 3, we have steady aim, and now I assume we're just going to have advantage every round. All right, and so that's going to change everything again. Don't worry, this is not going to be this complicated all the way up. Just a lot of things are changing with advantage over these first 3 levels. And our sneak attack die becomes 2d6. So the first thing we want to do is we want to change this 72% to 84%, because we will have advantage 100% of the time, and 10% here. We still don't have advantage on the second attack, though. So it is still going to be 0.65 is still accurate, because steady aim also isn't going to give you advantage on both attacks. So let's redo our calculations. We got 5.5 times 0.84. It's 4.6. And I can do this one in my head. It's going to be 0.25, which adds up to 0.3, or rounds up. This number won't change. And sneak attack is now 7. 2d6 averages 7. But the 1.02 is going to change as well. So it's the same thing here. We're going to take our average chance of missing on the first attack, which is 16%, multiplied by the chance of missing on the second attack, which is 40%, is 0.64. And then, so our chance to hit at least once is 94%. So it's still 94. It was 94% before. Right? Yeah, I think so. And I'm just going to verify that because I would have thought it might have been different. That's definitely 94. And was the other one, did I make a mistake on 2? Because I would have thought my number would be different here. And it's not. 28% to miss times 40% to miss. Aha! Okay. So, and this happens. I screwed up. So at level 2, when I was figuring out the sneak attack damage, I used the full advantage rather than the 0.72 that we were actually using at that level. So our chance of applying sneak attack should have been 0.28 times 0.4 minus 1. Should have been 89%. So we're going to make that change right now. This should have been 89. And that should have been 97. And I'm sure all of you were yelling at your screens a couple minutes ago. 0.97. And it's 3.5 times 0.97 is 3.4. Meaning our DPR actually drops by 0.2. Does that make a big difference? No. You would probably, on the graph, you probably wouldn't even see the difference between a 9.2 and a 9.4. So I don't sweat it too much if there's little errors like this, but for a video, I want to have it as correct as possible. So now it's 94 plus, let's figure out our critical. It starts at 0.1, right, which is 10%. And then we only have a 16% chance to miss and a 50% or a 5% chance to hit or to crit on the second one. 0.1. All right. So we end up with 11%. Chance of crit damage is 105. 105%. So this becomes a 5. And that's 7. So 7 times 1.05 is 7.35 or 7.4. And then I'm going to add them together. So we got 4.6, 0.3, 1.6, and 7.4. It's 13.9. The good news is our chances to hit and to crit for our first attack, our second attack, and our sneak attack will never change again. it will be the same all the way up to level 20. So our dexterity increases to 4. So what we want to do is change this to a 4 right here. And this becomes a 6.5. And that changes this number here. 6.5 times 0.84 is 5.5. And nothing else changed. So we got 5.5 plus 0.3 plus 1.6 plus 7.4. It's 14.8. All right. Now we're going to be doing this again because our sneak attack damage has changed to a 3d6. 3d6. So it's 3.5 for a d6 times 3 is 10.5. So we're just going to change the sneak attack number here to 10.5, and nothing else really needs to change. Multiply that by 1.05, and we do 11.0. And so we got 5.8, 6.8, 7.4, 18.4. And then nothing changes at 6, so I can just take this DPR and cut and paste it. And then our sneak attack goes up another one at 7. And this is going to get a lot faster and a lot easier very quickly, right after level 8. So level 7, we're going to take our sneak attack, and we got 46. 3.5 times 4 is 14. Times 1.05 is 14.7. And plus 1.6 plus 0.3 plus 5.5 is 22.1. All right. Next level, dexterity becomes a plus 5. And so this number changes to 5 right here. This number goes to 7.5. And this number goes to 7.5. And we'll multiply it out. So 7.5 times 0.84 is 6.3. And let's see. So we'll add them together here. 6.6, 7.6, 8.2, 18.2, 22.2, 22.9. Sometimes I add in my head, sometimes I use a calculator. All right, so here's the nice thing. Everything from here will never change again for the next, at least, until level 19 and we get our epic boon feat. So what I can do is I can just take these numbers. So we got 6.3, 0.3, and 1.6. Let's add them together. And essentially, it's going to be sneak attack damage plus 8.2. All right, so weapons is 8.2. Sneak attack. And just the sneak attack will change. So that is going to become 17.5. Times 1.05 is 18.4. So our DPR is, what do we got? 26.6. And no change at 10. And then at 11, just cut and paste this. And 17.5 plus 3.5 is 21. Whoops, 21. $22.1. That averages out. It's 22.05. And then we got 30.3. Okay, And then it stays the same at 12. Then 13. So we're moving. Okay, so 24.5. Times 1.05. It's 25.7. So what do we got? 33.9. And it'll stay the same at 14. Then at 15. Let's see. So 24.5 plus 3.5 is 28. Times 1.05 is 29.4. Plus 8.2. Why can't I do that in my head right now? 37.6. And no change at 16. We're getting close. Level 17. So we're adding a D6. So this will become 31.5. Times 1.05 is 1.575. That can't be right. 31.5 times... Oh, I did by 0.05. 31.5 times 1.05. There we go. 33.075 or 33.1. And we got 41.3. And it won't change at 18. All right. Level 19, Epic Boon of Irresistible Offense. So this one, what it does is if we score a critical hit, we improve the damage of our critical hits by the amount of the ability score that we improved with the feat. And we would have done Dex 21. So Dexterity 21, so our critical hits do 21 more points of damage. And you ignore if you have it doesn't affect this build. But if you had an expanded crit range, it's only on a 20. It's got to be a nat 20. But let's go back to where we actually have the math. And we're going to cut and paste it. And then what happens is these numbers change. So we're going to add 21 to them, which is going to make them, what, 23.5. And we change them here. And so let's see, we got 23.5 times 0.1 is going to be 0.235 or 2.35, which rounds off to 2.4. And no, I was whoops. All right, sorry. This is 2.5 times 0.6. We have to do our critical hit separately now, right? Because it's different damage. 23.5 times 0.05. We can't put them together anymore. Tell you, it would give us a pretty big number if we did. So 1.2 is our amount there. And then we need to adjust our sneak attack here. So sneak attack at this point is 10d6, so that's 35. Times 1.05. 36.75, so 36.8. And let's add them together. So we got 6.3, 2.4, 1.6, 1.2, 36.8, and we get 48.3. And nothing will change at level 20, so it's 48.3. We've now done our DPR calculations. Now for the fun part. All right, so this is the part I look forward to, is once I actually have numbers, I can do stuff with them. So what I've got here is a Google Doc where I keep track of my various DPR numbers. So I am going to do 2024 Rogue Dagger Thrower. And then I just take the numbers for each level and write them down. So we got 8.2 at level 1, 9.2 at 2, 13.9 at 3, 14.8 at 4, 18.4 at 5 and 6, 22.1 at 7, 22.9 at 8, then 26.6 at 9 and 10, and 30.3 at 11 and 12, and then 33.9 twice, and 37.6 twice, and 41.3, and 48.3. All right, so what I've got there is 20 numbers. Now we're going to have some fun. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is the program I use for my graphing. It's Line Graph Maker from Rapid Tables. It's free. And I don't know if there's a better one to use, but this is one I'm now used to. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take the Warlock baseline and I can just cut and paste those 20 numbers that I wrote down and put them here. And then I can just call it Warlock baseline. And then we're going to add a second line. And now we're going to do Rogue Daggers. And let's just cut and paste those numbers. Then I click Draw and Full Screen. And there's our Rogue Daggers versus the baseline. And it looks like we do beat the baseline at all 20 levels. I wasn't sure we would. But I guess just that extra dagger is enough to get us. It's usually like the level 5 where it's rough for the rogue. But that extra dagger apparently is enough to get us just above baseline there. Not a lot above baseline, but a little bit. So we're at 16.5 versus 18.4. And then, as we always see with the rogue, it's close at level 11. It's close at level 17. It's usually very close at level 5. And then it's like those little in-between levels where the rogue tends to do better. And that's not surprising. Now, why don't we see how it does against True Strike Rogue? Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to just go here. We'll do 3 lines. And I'm learning this at the same time as you, so this is interesting to me. All right, so here is 2024 Rogue base damage. That'll be the light crossbow build. So we'll throw that in. Whoops. And this is a True Strike Rogue. Let's draw it, and let's look. Okay, so there's your difference between Nick Daggers, throwing 2 daggers around, or shooting a crossbow once around with True Strike. Our top line is True Strike, the green line. The thing I like about the True Strike that I kind of wish they had built into the base Rogue, but they didn't, was that we see a bigger jump at 5, 11, and 17, where I think the Rogue just really needs those bumps, or can really use those bumps. Whether they need them is a subjective matter. But there it is. So that's how I do damage, and I'm excited as anybody to see these graphs because I'll throw them up and I'll be experiencing them for the first time, and they just give so much information. Like, for example, this is not a surprise to me, but if you're playing in Tier 1, you definitely don't need True Strike on your Rogue. You can see here, the Dagger user is out damaging 3 out of 4 levels, and then the one, they're basically the same. And then, yeah, we just, level 5 is where we're going to notice it, right? That's when we'll notice the difference. But I mean, take the red line for what you will. If you think it's good enough, there's no defined line as to where good enough is. You know, this Warlock baseline, I've been saying maybe it's too low, but this is all subjective, right? So it's up to you to decide. But that's how I figure out the damage. So if you see me showing the math in future videos, now you understand where that math comes from. So I hope you enjoyed this. And a little bit different video today. We'll be back on damage videos in my next video. Thank you.